A man had a dream. In that dream, a stranger taught him a series of words. Words no one on earth had ever said before. He woke up, ran to the Prophet, peace be upon him. And those words from a dream became the sound that would echo across the entire world for the next 1,400 years. 5 times a day. Every single day. Across every country on earth. That is the Azaan. But here is what almost nobody thinks about. Before that dream happened, before those words existed, Muslims were still praying 5 times a day. Every single day. With no Azaan. No call. No signal. So how did they know when to pray? How did they gather together? And why did the Prophet reject a bell, a horn, and even fire, before the dream finally gave them the answer? That is exactly what this video is about. To understand this, you have to go back to the very beginning of Islam. The year is around 610 CE. Mecca. The Prophet Muhammad receives the first revelation. A small group of people begin to follow him. These are the first Muslims. And they pray. But in those early years, Islam is not public. Muslims are a tiny minority surrounded by people who reject them. In some cases, they are being watched, being persecuted. So there is no loud call to prayer. No public announcement. Prayer in those early days is quiet, personal, sometimes hidden. Then comes the night journey, the Isra wal Miraj. The 5 daily prayers are made obligatory. Fajr, Duhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha. 5 times, every day, no exceptions. And now, the question becomes very real. How does a growing community of Muslims, spread across the city, all know when to stop and pray, with no clocks, no phones, no Azaan? The answer, at least at first, was the sky. Before the Azaan, Muslims used natural signs to know when each prayer began. Far was the easiest to spot. The moment the first white light spread across the horizon, before the sun even appeared, Far had begun. Dur was tied to the sun's position. The moment the sun crossed its highest point in the sky and began moving toward the west, that was the signal. You could not miss it. Asr was connected to shadows. When your shadow became equal to your own height, it was Asr time. You literally used your own body as a clock. Maghrib was the simplest of all. The instant the sun fully disappeared below the horizon, you prayed. No guessing, no waiting. And Isha began when the red glow of sunset completely faded and the sky turned fully dark. So in the early days, every Muslim was their own timekeeper. They watched the sky, they read the signs, and they prayed individually or in small groups, mostly by word of mouth between companions who lived nearby. But this system had a limit. It worked when the community was small, when everyone lived close together and could simply tell each other, hey, it is time. When the community grew, everything changed. After the Hijrah, the migration to Medina in 622 CE, everything changed. The Muslim community was no longer a small hidden group. It was growing fast. New people entering Islam every day. Families, tribes, people spread across the entire city. Individual timekeeping was no longer enough. So for a period of time, the solution was this. A man would walk through the streets of Medina and call out 3 words. As-Salatu Jami'ah, which means the prayer is gathered. Come, it is time. That was it. No special words. No melody. No call from a high place. Just a man, walking through the city, announcing prayer time with his voice. Simple, but it worked for a while. Because the Prophet and the companions knew this was not the final answer. The community was still growing. The city was getting bigger, and soon, one man walking through the streets would not be enough to reach everyone. A bigger solution was needed. And so the debate began. The companions gathered and started putting forward ideas. The first suggestion, a bell. Ring it loud enough and people across the city will hear it. Simple, effective. The Prophet rejected it. The bell was the practice of Christians. Islam was not going to copy the symbols of another religion. The second suggestion, a horn. Blow it from a high place. The sound carries far. Rejected again. The horn was used by Jewish communities. Same reason Islam needed its own identity, its own sound, its own call. The third suggestion, fire. Light a large fire on a hill or rooftop. People will see the smoke and the flame from a distance and know it is prayer time. Also rejected. Fire as a signal was associated with Zoroastrian practices. Again, not appropriate for Islam. One by one, every idea the companions put forward was turned down, and the Muslims were left with no answer. Until the night Abdullah ibn Zayd went to sleep. Abdullah ibn Zayd was one of the companions of the Prophet. That night he had a dream. In the dream, he saw a man carrying a bell. Abdullah approached him and asked, "Will you sell me that bell so I can use it to call Muslims to prayer?" The man looked at him and said, Shall I not show you something better than that? And then, in the dream, the man began to recite,
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, Hayya ala salat. حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا
Words that no one on earth had ever said before in that order. In that form, Abdullah woke up immediately and ran straight to the Prophet. He told him everything, every word, every detail of the dream. The Prophet listened and said, "This is a true dream. It is from Allah." But then, the Prophet did not ask Abdullah to give the Azaan himself. Instead, he called someone else, a man named Bilal ibn Rabah. Bilal was not an Arab. He was from Abyssinia, modern-day Ethiopia, a freed slave who had been one of the earliest people to accept Islam. And because of that, he had paid a price. His master had dragged him into the desert, laid him on burning hot sand under the blazing Meccan sun, placed a massive boulder on his chest to crush him, and told him, "Give up Islam. Say you reject it, and this will stop." Bilal looked up at the sky and said one word, "Ahad, Ahad, one, one," meaning Allah is one. "I will not give this up." That was Bilal. And the Prophet chose him, above everyone else, to give the first Azaan in the history of Islam, because his voice was powerful, because his voice was beautiful, and perhaps because no one had earned that moment more than him. Bilal climbed to a high place in Medina, and for the first time in history those words rang out across the city. People stopped in the streets, came out of their homes. Some did not understand what they were hearing, but they came. From that day, in the first year after Hijrah, the Azaan became the call of Islam. A call that began with one man's voice in one city. And today, right now, somewhere on earth those same words are being said. The same words from a dream. The same words that replaced the bell, the horn, and the fire. The same words Bilal said for the very first time. And every single Muslim who hears the Azaan today is connected to that moment, to Abdullah ibn Zayd's dream, to Bilal's voice, to a small community in Medina that was just trying to figure out how to pray together. That is where the Azaan came from. And now you know what came before it.